That would be history already in the building tonight, as President Donald Trump becomes the first sitting U.S. president ever to attend a Super Bowl game live.
What the heck? The first sitting president to ever attend a Super Bowl game live. Very specific phrasing. In the house for the first half anyway. And how was he received? I've got that coming up for you. Taylor Swift was there, too. Did she sing any songs, or she dating Kendrick Lamar or anything like that? Because, Kendrick Lamar was there. What words did he use anyway? Does anyone know what words he used? I was trying and trying. I think I recognize that word. Can you say that on TV? Isn't that inappropriate? Kendrick Lamar, what did he get, the Nobel Peace Prize? He didn't get he got the Pulitzer Prize, though, for that song that you can't even play on the radio because of all the words. People that call themselves liberals love that stuff. They not really on the side of civilization, which could be problematic, if they're in charge of anything. Oh, wait, they're in charge of all kinds of things. Like the deep state, and more bad news over the last 24 hours for the deep state, the permanent bureaucracy from the FBI to, you see this, Elizabeth Warren created a new government agency. She's very proud. She created a new government agency that will live forever, or it won't. This, Consumer Protection Agency. I'm in favor of consumer protection, but I think we got about 14 or 19 different agencies looking at the same thing. But Elizabeth Warren never had a problem with redundancy, repetition, or unnecessarily duplication. See, that's a little bit of a redundancy joke there. That's got that going. So looks like her phony baloney, let's create a government agency may be on the way out, and that would probably be okay. Because how many, if every senator created a new government agency in every Senate, how long would that take? And the whole thing. But we've got a lot to get to. The big Super Bowl game last night. I'm sure everybody watched at least the first half of the big Super Bowl game last night. And it was, boy, I had several text threads going simultaneously. And the comments and remarks during the course of the game, everybody, including President Trump, who did an interview, and we have a bunch of this for you, with Bret Baier on the Fox News channel yesterday at Mar-a-Lago, then got on Air Force One and went to New Orleans, went to the game for the first half of the game. The president left at halftime to come back to Washington and the White House. I don't have a tracking beacon on him or anything like that, but I think that's right. And if I were looking up my window, I could see him coming and going, but that's another discussion for another day. But the game, boy, the comments were, President Trump predicted that Kansas City was going to likely win because of their great quarterback. Their great quarterback didn't show up last night. Mahomes was not at his best last night, let's say, not by a long shot. And I got to say, the Philadelphia Eagles, how do you spell that again? Because the mayor of Philadelphia tried to spell the Eagles when she was leading criminals in a chant. Was she leading criminals in a chant? I think she was. And she couldn't remember how to spell the word Eagles, even though it's the name of their football team in Philadelphia in the NFL. But never mind her.
Let me hear you all say E-L-G-S-E-S, Eagles! Let's go, Birds!
Sherelle Parker, that's why public education in Philadelphia is not what it ought to be. But they won anyway. What the hell? You don't need to spell. You just need to knock people down real good and all that. And then there was something of a riot in Philadelphia last night after the win. Good thing they didn't lose. There might have been a body count. But Philadelphia fans, famous for being rowdy and all that stuff. And I'll get to the riot in Philadelphia, the mayhem. Was it a riot? Was it an insurrection? I think it was probably an insurrection. Isn't that amazing? They're tearing down streetlights and all kinds of things, and lots of violence and destruction. That's because, as everybody knows, Philadelphia Eagles fans are the Palestinians of the NFL. They're the Palestinians of the NFL. And so you should expect, there's like Hamas. Hamas won last night. And did they take any hostages? Wonder if there are any hostages. Because they do have they have their own jail in Philadelphia at the state. They still have that jail, I think, don't they? Just for them. So we've got the big Super Bowl last night. And again, friends, multiple text threads with friends. Boy, this game is not going as expected, and it wasn't I was expecting a really great football game with two great teams and great quarterbacks and offensive play, and Philadelphia showed up. They showed up to play, and they kicked butt. They were dominant, and KC, who I kind of I wasn't heavily emotionally invested, but I expected KC to win the game, and boy, they didn't show up. They just took a beating, a drubbing. They were like kids at a grown up game, and didn't go well for them at all. Got to say, and the halftime show was the worst halftime show in the history of Super Bowl halftime shows. It was awful. Got that Kendrick Lamar guy. Was he cursing? We're still trying to figure out whether he was cursing. Did he use the S word? Did he use the N word? Nobody can really tell because you couldn't understand anything that he said, which, whatever. Was he yelling about Drake? Was he yelling about Drake because he's got this Drake drunk dread thing? I'm not sure what that's all about, but remarkable stuff. So there was a lot going on there, and we stayed up to the bitter end, and it wasn't that late, I guess, but we stayed up to the bitter end. Is it me? Maybe it's me. There were not a lot of Super Bowl parties last night. Not a lot of Super Bowl parties. Wah, wah, wah. And I don't know why that is, but who can say? Who can say? So we've got a lot going on. Again, President Trump did an interview with Bret Baier prior to the Super Bowl, and I think he did the interview at Mar-a-Lago. And then the president flew to New Orleans for the Uber Bowl, and left at halftime, and probably just as well. Now KC eventually did score a little bit and threw a couple. At the very end of the game, it's like, oh, there's Mahomes. He showed up and threw a pass, and it went right where it was supposed to go, and it was a touchdown. You're supposed to be doing that all night long, though. That's why they pay you what they call the big bucks and all that stuff. Wah wah wah. And there was a lot of people talking about the ad. There was an ad during the Super Bowl last night advertising recruiting for the Secret Service, who are not having the best year they've ever had. And social media goes nuts for stirring Secret Service Super Bowl ad featuring Trump shooting. Absolutely epic. That's the headline there. And the TV ad was produced by a big action Hollywood producer. Remarkable stuff. And the left is, they're all crazy about Elon Musk. They really hate him. They really hate almost everybody, though. But they really hate Elon Musk. And, he's an African-American, and they're the party of the KKK and the Confederacy and Jim Crow. So that might be why they hate him. Might be because they just hate everybody. Remarkable stuff. Now, there was a headline. These headlines were out there. Reports suggest, try to use some mushier language there. Elon Musk might get a little mushier, spend $40 million on Super Bowl ads targeting government waste. That's a great headline. I don't think that happened. Did that ever happen? I don't think those ads appeared. Sounded like it would be a good idea. A friend of mine, federal law enforcement, sent me, hey, keep your eyes peeled for the Elon Musk Super Bowl ads about government waste and Doge. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to hit my DVR twice. I'm going to record this twice. And I watched, and I didn't see any of those. I don't know if the communists prevented that from happening or what's going on. Remarkable stuff. Wah, wah, wah. President Trump asked that. No, he did his interview because he doesn't do enough media. He did his sit-down interview with Bret Baier of the Fox News Channel. Then he got aboard Air Force One, where he did another interview with all of the press flying on Air Force One. When the president flies aboard Air Force One, when the president travels, and, even in the motorcade and stuff, you might find what they call the press pool, the travel pool. And there's one camera crew from TV and one TV reporter and one, wire service reporter, with his pen and pad, although he doesn't have a pen and pad anymore. And then you got wire service and newspaper print, other print people. And they travel aboard Air Force One in a little compartment, a small room aboard Air Force One. President Trump invited them in, which Joe Biden never, ever did, and did a full-blown press conference with them aboard Air Force One, flying to New Orleans, apparently, and answered a lot more questions. And there was a lot of good stuff going on in there. Now, there's a funny headline in the New York Post that made me laugh. Trump rules out deporting Prince Harry, of the British royal family, of the inbred royal family. The inbreeding is their bag baby. So Trump rules out deporting Prince Harry. Quote, he's got enough problems with his wife. He's got enough, end quote, he's got enough problems with his wife. President Trump, I think, is right about that. He's married to that. He shouldn't be. Why did he do that? The guy had such a life, and look what he did. Man, oh, Manischewitz, I'm telling you. Woohoo. CBS very disappointed to announce that their new poll shows that President Trump is more popular than ever. How did he get so popular? He's enormously popular. Very, very popular. And the poll numbers from CBS, they've got, it's not what CBS wanted, but I've got that. High approval rating for Trump in first month, CBS poll shows. And but then a lot of the media went digging through the poll to find some negative numbers, and they highlighted and featured those negative numbers because that's our news media. They're not a legitimate news media at all, are they? No, they're not. Also, this has got the people on the morning shows really riled up. Trump says he's directed Treasury to stop minting new pennies. Stop making new pennies. Why do you have so many pennies? We don't want new pennies. Get rid of these pennies. So he announced that we're going to stop making pennies. It turns out it costs a lot more to make a penny than a penny's worth, but we've known that for a long time, truth be told. That's been true for a very long time. And now it's much more. President Trump put out on Truth Social last night, for far too long, the United States has minted pennies, which literally cost us more than 2 cents, he said. They actually cost, what is it, like 3.7 cents per penny, I think is the number. This is so wasteful, Trump said. I've instructed my Secretary of the U.S. Treasury to stop producing new pennies. Let's rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time. Even if it's a penny at a time, see, because the penny at a time. And we pay a lot more for a penny than a penny is worth, but it doesn't really matter what it costs. I also saw this morning that a nickel cost like 13 cents or something like that to make. But it's currency. It's not, precious metals that we're talking about here. We got that going on. Wah, wah, wah. And here's an exciting exclusive from Axios. Book reveals Trump's worry about Iran targeting him. The jihadis, they want to murder him. They're very upset that he killed a king terrorist named Soleimani, Qasem Soleimani. Very, very upset. Yes, they are. But a book is out saying, no, he's actually concerned. He probably should be actually concerned about it, as a matter of fact. What about peace in Ukraine? People at CNN really upset. He said he'd stop the war on day one. He hasn't stopped the war yet, and it's more than 2 weeks now. So CNN is upset that he hasn't stopped the war. What are we coming up on 3 years or something for the war there? It's all Joe Biden's war, but Trump's been in for, several lunch hours, and he hasn't stopped it, so he must be vilified. Amazing stuff. we've got Doge and Elon Musk and, oh, what about the young guy with the racist tweet? Well, he must be a Democrat. I don't know what's he doing in there. Remarkable stuff. And federal employees returning to work. So in Washington, people are really worried about traffic and parking. Not that they're self-absorbed or anything like that. We got illegal aliens stealing from churches. We've got Israel. And in the United Kingdom, they've got a poo museum. Naturally, where else would they have Great Britain, the Navy, buggery. You know the story. We're at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. Kendrick Lamar, he's a Pulitzer Prize-winning something or other. That prize is no longer of any value to anyone. All right, let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Rob, calling from Montgomery County, Maryland. Roberto, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Mr. Chris, good morning to you, sir. Happy Monday.
Monday.
In the People's Republic of Montgomery County. Anyway, I have a new one word for these people now. All the Pound Sanders that are out there, like Chucky and all the rest of them, they're irrelevant. They've become irrelevant, and they can't handle it. And plus, I guess their multiple piggy bank kickbacks are going to be coming back to haunt them soon.
Well, that is our hope, isn't it? If we find out about all of the government waste and fraud and abuse. Everybody always uses waste, fraud, and abuse like it's one word. But who do you think's been driving the train on the waste, on the fraud, and on the abuse of our government dollars for all these decades under cover of broad daylight, right out here in the light of day with the news media, such as it is, not looking into it, not reporting on it, because I think because they're protecting their pals, right, Rob?
Exactly. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but they're fighting it. It looks like they haven't learned any lessons from recent history or any other time in history.
No, you're absolutely right. They haven't learned any lessons, and here's the reality: the new administration is trying to find government waste, fraud, abuse, which amounts to corruption. And the Democrats are like, hey, wait a minute, that's us. So they're throwing themselves in front of this train at every turn, right?
Yes, buses, trains, cars, anything that's moving.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if we had a news media, they'd be scratching their heads and saying, well, why is it that all the Democrats are so vociferously fighting for every inch of government bureaucratic turf? That question answers itself, of course, if you have two brain cells. Thank you, Rob. Now, Rob, our last brilliant caller, calling from the People's Republic, calling from Montgomery County in Maryland, where is that place just run by MS-13 now? Or only the schools where your daughters go? They're irrelevant. You got Chuck Schumer screaming at the time. Of course, he screams a lot about, threatening Supreme Court justices, and then an armed gunman shows up at Brett Kavanaugh's house, and nobody in the media or the Republican Party, for that matter, sees any utility in pointing out that the Democrat leader in the Senate was inciting and instigating this insurrection. But never mind that. Remarkable stuff. Now, there's something big going on here in D.C. today, in our nation's capital. The headline at the local NBC television station: nearly 17,000 federal workers. They're not employees, they're workers, like in the communist Soviet Union. Nearly 17,000 federal workers returned to office at Navy Yard on Monday. at Navy Yard. They got 17,000. I've been down to the Navy Yard. I don't think they have office space for 17,000 employees. Nowhere close, as a matter of fact. I've been in some of those buildings. Thousands of federal workers are returning, and so, turning back to in-person work on Monday. In-person work, that's got to be terrible. Michael, what would you do if you had to show up to work? That'd be a kind of an amazing thing. Thousands of federal workers are turning back to in-person work on Monday after President Trump's executive order. And then they've got their local reporter talking about it because, oh no, the traffic's going to be so bad. And what about the parking? We don't have enough parking. This is actually a big story in Washington, D.C. today. I'm not making this up. I guess my question is, where was the parking last time you showed up to work? And when did you stop showing up to work? Because of the Wuhan? Because a lot of people stopped showing up to work for the Wuhan and then started showing up again maybe a year later. But how many years ago was that now? So years and years, what it's like a half a decade, it's the government. Some dimwit makes a decision, probably Joe Biden. And, everybody can work from home. It doesn't mean, you're a ditch digger and they tell you to work from home. You're a school teacher and they tell you to work from home. Well, just do everything by Zoom call. And now when it's time, hey, chop, chop, back to work. Like, oh, no, the traffic's going to be so bad. What about parking? And what is the story? Michael was looking at a story today. Said they've got 17,000 employees. I reject the term worker, but only 4,000 parking spaces. So how did this all work before? You tell us that there are 17,000 employees that work there that are now going back to work. It's not like it's day one. We just invented the idea of work, and they've got to show up. But you say that 17,000 people are going to work there, but there's only parking, and they're now returning to work where they used to go to work. But there are only 4,000 parking spaces. So did all 17,000 people drive their own cars by themselves? Is that because we have these slug lines in Washington, which is I've never seen any place else, actually, where people go to intersections or to subway stops or even bus stops, and you're in your car and you're by yourself and you're going to Navy Yard. And you know that these three people over here, they're all going to the Navy Yard too. So you let them get in your car and you carpool in so that you can use the HOV lanes, right? I almost said HIV lanes because South Africa was in the news a bit this weekend, and things got so bad there that they have HIV lanes. That's because hey, hang on. So and they're really riled up about this. And the Pentagon, oh no. People go in the Navy Yard and the Pentagon, they just like 24,000 people work in the Pentagon. There's a lot of parking and there's subway trains that go in there and there are buses that go there. It's worked fine, really, since 1942, I think. And don't worry about that. But now nothing works anymore because, there are certain people, some people. Yes, sir. So what are we going to do? Federal workers brace for traffic and parking as they return to office on Monday. The city worked fine for generations, decade after decade, with all of this going on until about, 20 minutes ago in the grand historical scheme of things. But now everybody's all riled up and we're parking. It's Fox 5 DC. Traffic. Parking concerns grow as thousands of federal employees return to office. At least they said employees. I appreciate that. Some federal employees return to the office Monday. And, I guess if you got used to working from home for how many years? 4 years? 5 years? Is it 5 years? I think it's. Yeah, it's a long time. It's coming up in a half a decade of working from home. Then say, hey, let's everybody go back to work. And who was it? We had a cabinet secretary last week saying at his department about 5% of the employees show up on Mondays and on Fridays, about 5%. Because, why would you show up if you don't have to? And it's the government. It's not like there are any standards, anybody's watching what you do or anything like that. The radical left-wing extremists at WTOP Radio. With limited parking, thousands of workers to return to in-person at Washington Navy Yard. Why is it only the Navy Yard? Is that the only place people are coming back to work? They must have better PR than anybody else because they got all the headlines, the Navy Yard. Yeah, and nearly 17,000 Washington Navy Yard workers, communists, are expected to report to work in person 5 days a week, starting Monday, that's today, setting the stage for days of traffic headaches. There was no traffic headache for me coming in today, but that guy in the pickup truck did almost head on me, almost hit me head on Wisconsin Avenue, but never mind that. Federal personnel assigned to the base and the surrounding communities should prepare for traffic congestion, increased foot traffic, and gate delays, Naval District, Washington said in a news release. Listen, you guys have a job? You getting paid? Am I paying you? I think I am. I'm maybe not your whole salary, but I'm one of the people paying for it. Amazing stuff. So the Naval District, Washington, said its leaders have worked with area government and officials and police to inform efforts for public safety and traffic control. And the base has been working with its tenant commands to ensure a smooth transition back to the office. Isn't it kind of like, hey, it's been a 5-year weekend, and today's Monday. Let's all come back. Where did you park 5 years ago? How did you drive in 5 years ago? It's probably true there's been less traffic. My traffic pattern is not the same as most people's traffic patterns, but that will be a challenge. There are only 4,473 parking spaces. They got enough employees to count the parking spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4,462. Oh, no, I lost count. I got to start over again. So there are only 4,473 parking spaces, according to the military installation. The Navy Yard said once all the parking spaces are full, drivers will be redirected elsewhere. That makes sense, doesn't it, Michael? I think that's probably best. Ward 6 council member Charles Allen. Now, that's not the... Because I thought Navy Yard was Trayon White. I know he lives there in the Navy Yard in his $5,500 a month apartment. That's why he needed those bribes. Ward 6 D.C. council member, city councilman, Charles Allen said 8,000 to 10,000 vehicles are expected. He said the district will have the additional traffic control officers in the area, but suggested employees take public transportation. Why didn't I think of that? Thank God for government, because, who would come up with these brilliant ideas? Wait, there's a subway train that we can take and come in? That is pretty amazing. That's just great. Yes, sir. So what are you going to do about that? Well, I don't know. Go to work. Do what everybody else does. And then when we really need to figure this out as a coffee clutch. We need to reestablish, I'm going to drive into work or I'm going to take public transportation. And then what do I do when I get there? Well, you park. Well, there's not enough parking. Oh, no. We're really starting from scratch with these people, aren't we? What century is it? Where have you people been? Man, oh, man. The move to full week in-person work comes following President Trump's January 20th executive order. The radical left-wing extremists at WTOP said, boy, I'm telling you, these guys. So that's what's going on in Washington. Oh, no, back to, what are we going to do? We don't have enough parking. Thankfully, we put a multi-billion-dollar subway system in for you, and We have buses and, and the patriarchy built all that stuff for you, and cars and jetpacks. That's a remarkable time we're living in, isn't it? Yes, it is. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to John, calling from Kensington, Maryland. Oh, John, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, John.
Mayor Bowser wants us to come back into work, federal workers, but this is what she's increased since when we first started working at home. Speed cameras, red light cameras, stop sign cameras, bike lanes, bus lanes, parking lanes, speed bumps that damage the underside of our cars, Black Lives Matter Plaza, change streets to one way and no right turn on red. How does she expect us to come back to work if she's making it that difficult for us to come back?
You are 100% right. You are brilliant. You've been paying very close attention, and you are 100% correct. You're absolutely right. The left-wing lunatics and Mayor Muriel Bowser, who is a complete dimwit, I did not vote for her myself, took over 16th Street for blocks in front of the White House to call it Black Lives Matter, and then completely ignores all the black murders in Washington, D.C., and the abortions and the incarcerations and the shootings and the failure of the schools. But at least they got this ridiculous 16th Street. The White House is at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and where she closed off 16th Street is right in front of the White House for a couple of blocks, so they could paint Black Lives Matter in the street and then, not live by those words by any stretch of the imagination. You're right. They put bike lanes in all over the city since the Wuhan Red Death came out of Wuhan, China. And the federal government and the Democrats lied to us about it for years on end, and they lied and lied and lied about the Wuhan Red Death not coming from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Why do you think they call it the Wuhan Red Death, after all? But you're 100% right. The bike lanes, and I hadn't even thought it through that much, John, and you are correct, making traffic and parking much, much more difficult all over the city because idiots in Washington, D.C. say we really need to take over streets and make them bike lanes. And again, I drive morning, noon, and night in the city going to and from various jobs. And coming home at night in particular, there are bike lanes on major roads that have taken lanes away from cars. And if you see one bike on the bike lane or in the bike lane at rush hour, at evening rush hour, it's like, wow, hey, look, that bike lane is being used by one moron with a bobblehead helmet that he was wearing when he was 5 years old on his three-wheeled bike, too. And you're right, shutting down Black Lives Matter. And you're right about the speed cameras and the red light cameras, which they added how many, John? More than 500, I think, right?
Oh, yeah. I lost count.
I lost count. Hundreds and hundreds, you're right, of red light, because these are revenue collection devices that were built into place by friends of the Democrat Party that got the contract to do this money grab on the there's one place, the Russian embassy's got a speed camera there. I think I've gotten 3 speeding tickets from the camera, going by the Russian embassy, and $100. And they've got hundreds and hundreds of them all over the city because they want to harass and extort money from the Washington, D.C. residents and people that come in to go to work from Virginia and Maryland mostly. But you're right, the bike lanes, the speed cameras, the red light cameras. Oh, and wait a minute. I'm not sure if you mentioned this because I was taking notes on what you're saying. They also just banned all right turns on red in the entire city, right?
Yeah. Oh, I said that. That was my last one.
Okay, sorry. I was taking notes on what you were saying. You're 100% right. They say, well, look, the president sends everybody come back to work. We're tired of paying you to sit in your pajamas and eat Cheerios all morning. I had Cheerios at breakfast this morning. And eat Cheerios all day. But you're right. They banned right turn on red in the whole city. They shut down 16th Street for Black Lives Matter Plaza. They put bike lanes in on major roads all over the city. They They honestly, the speed cameras and the red light cameras are everywhere to shake down everyone that comes into the city every day, people that work in the city, people that are just passing through, because they're communists. They call themselves liberals, but they're not. Boy, are they not. Because the Democrats, they're making everything better. And one of the reasons there's no more right turn on red, so their sons can carjack you more easily. How many carjackings last year? Like 950 carjackings in our 61 square miles of dirt? 900. It was more than 900 carjackings. Because the problem is not our guns, it's your sons. Yeah, good stuff, John. I hadn't thought it through myself. But you are 100% correct. That's John. He's right. We're at 888-630-9625. All right, let's see. Let's go back to the telephones. Let's go to Roger calling from Bowie, Maryland. Roger, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Wow, what a joyous occasion this is. First-time caller, but 40 years in the business, and I'm happy to go back to work. How about that?
What? Back to work? Where do you work?
Well, my dogs will miss me, but I'm happy to go back 5 days a week.
To the Navy Yard?
Yeah, so I work down there, work around there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be fun, but driving the pothole ridden 295 is just going to be my joy. And I probably have already busted up 3 or 4 cars just thanks to the DC roads.
Yep.
Traffic lights are not traffic lights. Speed cameras been caught 3 or 4 times. Got to pay the civil servant sometime.
Yeah. Are you back at work today?
No, this is actually one of my flex days. We haven't been reported back, but I do make my time at work online. But no, I'm ready to go back. 35 years before COVID, and the last 5 years have been, as they say, work from home.
Wow, 5 years work from home. I'm glad you called in, and good luck getting to work after your flex days.